So even if Eric Adams wanted to tackle the problem, even if he had solutions, even if they were good solutions, he still would not be able to go against his real constituency, which is private finance, Wall Street.
1,000%.
We can finally talk about the border crisis, our headline story for the day. Some of you might have seen the clip of New York City Mayor Eric Adams going off in a town hall about how New York City will be lost. In his words, our city will be lost because of how many illegal immigrants are being bussed into our city. It's 10,000 a month, according to him, and how a $12 billion deficit is now staring down the city of New York. And Eric Adams has no plan to face this $12 billion deficit, growing because of the number of illegal immigrants who are soaking up public resources. He has no plan to face this deficit other than just cutting public services for every sector in the city. In his own words, cutting every single public service sector's budget. And this is the reality that cities around the country are facing, as hundreds of thousands of migrants from Ecuador, from Haiti, from Venezuela, from Cuba are crossing over the U.S.-Mexico border. And many of them are being bussed by Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, being bussed to other municipalities. But a majority of them, according to the New York Times, are actually finding their own way across the United States, are paying their own bus fare, paying for their own airplane ticket, or getting into contact with friends or family, or just by themselves, just getting that one-way ticket to whatever city they think will be a job on the other side of that bus ride. And we'll watch the video here, but it's just worth pointing out that this is the reality that both parties have gotten us into, that's really been led by the Democratic Party, of opening up the border, of saying that illegal immigration is the solution to fixing America's ills. We need to diversify. We need to bring in this diverse group of people, and it's racist if you want to close down the border. This is the reality that they are now having to actually deal with, and they have no solutions to overcome. They have no solutions to face these deficits that they're staring down the barrels of. They have no solutions for dealing with crowded shelters as migrants continue to come into their cities. They have no solutions to ending the conflicts in the countries where these migrants are coming from. It is across the board for Republicans and Democrats. It's just become a circle jerk of complaining about who has it the worst in their state.
All right, I gotta. My phone's about to die. I'm gonna have to hop out here, but I want to give my thoughts on this real quick. I gotta say, the way this whole dichotomy is set up is you have the Democrats come in, and it's all, the border's all open, and then you have the Republicans come in, and it's we got kids in cages, right? And it's the way you're supposed to think about this is that it's conflicting ideologies going at each other and constantly fighting. But the reality is this is one agenda taking place, right? The fact that all the immigrants come in and also that they get persecuted, this is the point, okay? The Republicans act like they're against immigration, but they're really not. They're not. What they want is they want these people to be so exploited and so powerless that they can pay them dog shit wages and fire you and get these people in to your job. and they go hand in hand. You know, it's a dialectic. It's you got on the one hand, like Biden's still putting kids in cages. The media's just not talking about it, but he's also got the border open. You know, so but what's the point of having the border open if these people aren't being fucking exploited? And that's the thing. That's what these people want. Like the number one important thing, like the reason we have wars is for profit, right? Everyone knows that. And a huge source of profit is having these vulnerable populations. It's having these areas where like anything goes, right? And right now on the southern border, anything goes, right? You want to bring in drugs? Well, the CIA is going to profit off that. You want to bring in human trafficking? Well, the Lolita Epstein elite is going to profit off that. This is what they want, and it's the same thing they're doing in Ukraine. In Ukraine, how many children have gone missing in Ukraine? Why do you think that is? It's because people are making fucking money off it. And it's the same thing it's really just coming home. Like the same thing we've been doing in Iraq, the same thing we're doing in Vietnam. Vietnam is really obvious because long enough ago, this all declassified. You look up the Phoenix program. That's like human experimentation. It's about having these vulnerable populations that they can do whatever the fuck they want to make profit and to further their fucking agendas. And that's what's going on the southern border. Okay, they can bring in as many drugs as they want. And if you think the fentanyl crisis is the fault of China, you're a goddamn idiot, because we got our fucking southern border open. We got the cartels running border policy on the southern border, and you're going to blame China for fentanyl. Anyway, the drugs coming in, human trafficking coming in. This is it's like about creating these situations of crisis where they can just do whatever they fucking want. And when there's no laws, it's anybody's game, right? You can profit however you want that wouldn't normally be allowed. And this is the kind of situation that's created in Ukraine, the kind of situation that's created on the southern border, the kind of situation that's created in Vietnam and Korea. You go back, I mean, they've been doing this kind of shit for decades, creating these extremely vulnerable populations, creating this extremely vulnerable situations where they can just profit in the most obscene, satanic, disgusting ways possible. And that's what's going on the southern border. So these like ICE camps where they're putting people in jail, and the fact that it's like, oh, we have to be, altruistic, let everyone into the country, open border, they go hand in hand. It's the same agenda. It's just who's in power is what the media pushes, but it's the same agenda. And the agenda is we want to fucking exploit people as much as we goddamn can. That's what it's really about.
The agenda is we want to exploit people as much as we goddamn can. There you have it, folks. Clip it, wrap it, put a bow on it.
Yeah, awesome. My phone's gonna die in a second. I'm gonna have to.
I was about to say your phone's been about to die for the past half hour.
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen,
I see the little red.
Salute the milkman for showing up. I'll be holding it down a bit longer because I'm on my laptop. But yeah, we appreciate the milkman for coming on. I got the clip pulled up here. I'll pull it up in a second. The clip. Have you listened to Eric Adams' Town Hall, Ben?
Oh yeah, brother. I'm from Long Island, and I worked in New York City for years. I'm like an hour away from New York City, so I'm very familiar with Mayor California Raisin and his predecessor, Bill de Blasio, both of which have ruined fucking New York City beyond fucking recognition. So this speech, on one hand, is a little encouraging that he's speaking about the problem, but there is a tremendous amount of hypocrisy here, given the fact that Democrats generally are totally fine with illegal immigration until it starts to arrive en masse into Democrat stronghold cities among really rich Democrat donors who want to take their kids into Central Park, and there's a bunch of poor immigrants around there. How inconvenient. They should be in some small town somewhere. It's really fucking frustrating at the same time as it is a little cathartic to hear our mayor actually talk about a problem but I have zero faith that he has any practical solution for this. Crime rates are soaring in New York City. New York City is chock full of mentally ill people all over the subways. Anyone who's lived or worked in New York City, comparatively 2019 till now, can tell you that it's a stark difference. Like, the city is not safe anymore. It's far too expensive for anyone to live there. I was a public school teacher in the city, and I can tell you the schools are overburdened with fucking... I can tell you guys stories, man. I had kids from Yemeni refugees who spoke no English, who are supposed to take fucking high school state exams, like, in English. And they don't speak any English. And they fill up classes full of these kids and just let teachers deal with it. It's fucking insane. And now all of these people here who have children, they're going to get thrown in the public school system, further burdening it, further being a detriment to the kids who just need to get an education, American kids who need to get an education. It's a fucking disaster. It's not going to get any better. And yeah, it's both frustrating and relieving to hear him talk about this, but I'll let you play the clip.
Yeah, I'll go on my thoughts after we play some of this.
The New Yorkers, never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela.
To put that number into perspective, because you should always have context for numbers when they're thrown out at you. 10,000 immigrants a month, where there are oftentimes hundreds, if not thousands, depending on the day, coming across the border, going into Texas and Arizona. That's like thousands, and over the summer there were days where thousands of them were crossing every single day. To give you an idea of the scope of that, and New York is just starting to get that per month. So that's the context for that 10,000 a month number.
Now we get Ecuador. Now we get Russian speaking coming through Mexico. Now we get Western Africa. Now we getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We had a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us.
How
so
convenient.
I say to you as I turn.
I love this guy, man. We have a $12 billion deficit. Aren't you the fucking mayor? I mean, aren't you?
No,
you
no,
know,
talk about we have a talk about we never hear him talk about, we have a $12 billion deficit that we are going to create this many new manufacturing sector jobs. We're going to increase the GDP by creating this or that amount of industry.
No,
it's always austerity measures across the board. Because people like him, they know the game. They're already siphoning money off of public service budgets.
Dude, have you guys ever ridden a subway in New York City? They're falling apart. And the MTA in general, I mean, I take the Long Island Railroad, but, they have Metro North, they have, buses, all these things. All these services are falling apart, and yet the cost of tickets rises pretty much every quarter of a year. I think it's almost $3 to ride the subway now. And if you want to get a monthly ticket for the Long Island Railroad, if you commute into the city, it's $400 a month. Who the fuck can afford that? And half the time the trains are delayed, or they're falling apart, or there's a homeless guy with wielding a potato peeler on it. It's a disaster, and they're just going to keep cutting back on services, like you say, and jacking up the cost of living there for regular people. And they have no fucking resolution for this shit at all, dude, at all. It's a fucking disaster.
Wait, I want to respond to Carbon Mike. Carbon Mike says Adams, with his whole chest, was saying it was a sanctuary city. Yeah, because this dude is a fucking harlequin clown, dude. You think this guy has any goddamn power?
There goes. His battery finally died. Finally gave up the ghost. Damn shame.
Rip.
He was a real one.
Great rants.
Pour one out for Milkman in the comments. Hashtag free Milkman. Hashtag free Milkman in the comments. Get this man a new laptop so he can be off of his phone. Anyway, shout out to Carbon Mike in the comments. We'll be talking with Carbon Mike in Twitter Spaces on Sunday, 8 p.m. Be there, or we will find you. The People's Deep State will throw you in a gulag. Shout out to Carbon Mike. Yeah, and he is absolutely right. Let me bring your comment up there for a second. You're absolutely right. You know, it's always these liberal cities. They were the first to say that they would be sanctuary cities and that they loved diversity and inclusion. And when the problem becomes real, when it's not just rhetoric, when it's not just a way to win brownie points, they always revert to austerity measures because they are the ones like siphoning off money from these public budgets. They don't actually want to serve their constituency. Their constituency is corporate America. Their constituency is private finance monopolies. So even if Eric Adams wanted to tackle the problem, even if he had solutions, even if they were good solutions, he still would not be able to go against his real constituency, which is private finance, Wall Street.
1,000%, dude.
New York,
dude. Yeah, sorry, go on.
New York is the number one, has the largest GDP of any of the states in the union, but all of it is finance, is Wall Street, is stock buybacks and insurance, and all of this financial trickery, this nonsense that doesn't actually put food on people's tables, that doesn't put roofs over people's heads, but it still continues to put money in the pockets of people that Eric Adams serves. And they, even if he wanted to tackle the problem, they would sabotage him at every turn. And this is what I wanted to talk about, is you have people who actually, on their face, want to tackle the problem. People like Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, who has been putting up barriers along the Texas border, barbed wire fences, having a floating barrier across the Rio Grande, and assembling the Texas National Guard to put up a lot of these barriers. But the forces of private finance have been sabotaging him at every turn, of starting lawsuits against him, of sending National Guard from other states to shepherd more immigrants across the border, of telling him to tear down his makeshift barriers, of making it impossible for him to secure the people of Texas, to secure their economy, their local economies, to secure their safety. And that's the reality of the two-party system, is we don't have a political party right now which is strong enough to tackle finance monopoly. Historically, only communism is strong enough to do that. China has, the fentanyl being trafficked through the Mexico border into the United States. A lot of it does originate from China, but you know what? Like, fentanyl is a medical product. Most of that stuff goes to hospitals across the world, and a couple of illegal drug dealers are the ones like selling it to South America. And you know what China does with those drug dealers? They get a short trial and they get executed.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought that up, because
they get money. They get handed money.
Yeah. Look, the drug thing, though, why is there so many drugs flowing into this country? A big part of it is because there are millions of people abusing fucking drugs in this country. And listen, I work in the recovery industry adjacent to it. A big problem here is the fact that we have no idea how to tackle the drug problem from our end. If we could figure out how to resolve that issue, consumption would go way down and trafficking would go way down. We never look at our part of the problem. You hear Mexican politicians talk about this all the time, and you heard people in different political figures in Latin America mention this with the cocaine trade. Like, hey, look, America's a multi-billion-dollar fucking drug industry because you have so many people there doing fucking drugs. And when you look at, like, in treatment centers now, the primary method that they utilize is something called harm reduction, which is where you have people in treatment who don't even have to get clean. They can continue using, and they're considered to be in drug treatment, and they consider it harm reduction because, well, that's better than trying to force them to get sober. And if they can't, then they just leave treatment. And it's just a money collection scheme, right? It's just a way to keep billing your insurance in perpetuity forever and never resolving anything. And so you have all these people doing drugs, getting hooked on drugs. People are depressed and alienated under capitalism at this advanced stage. Nobody does any kind of dignified work here. They're alone at home on their computer 24 hours a day, working many hours a day, working some shitty job. And they get high to cope with that. And then, that's what creates this mass demand for drugs in this country. But then we turn around and we're like, oh, it's China's fault, because they manufacture precursors for fentanyl. Like, no, it's not the fault of China for manufacturing, as you rightfully put it, precursors to a medically necessary drug for certain people. But it's fucking America's fault for having this mass demand for illegal fentanyl. And before that, by the way, illegal heroin, right? And before that, illegal cocaine and all these other drugs. And let's not forget, the opiate crisis started with the Sackler family and OxyContin, an American company who got the entire nation hooked on opiates, which led to the heroin and then the fentanyl. It's time to stop putting everything on China. It can't always be this fucking retarded blame game where we do nothing. You mentioned this before. We do nothing for our own people. We do nothing to help them because they're not the real constituents, right? If we did anything to seriously tackle, like, hey man, execute the fucking drug dealers here. Just fucking do it. Like make a law like that and watch how that would affect the amount of consumption here. Get serious about the problem. You know what I mean? Make it stricter penalties for people who get caught with drugs. Make treatment more effective. Do something more comprehensive, because right now we're not doing shit. And you know what, dude? A big part of it, and I'm ranting now, I'm sorry, but a big part of it is they want people, and they, I know, is like this abstract thing, but we know what we're talking about. We're talking about people, within our government and within institutions, the healthcare institution, etc. They want people fucked up, right, and stupid, sitting on their couch and not thinking critically about what's going on and just, spending all their spare time, blasted out of their fucking mind on drugs, right, stoned or whatever, and being, basically drones, right, and eating fast food and fucking watching football. And then they go to work and, never question anything. And, they'll be the ones who are bullied into voting for Biden because they don't want to seem like a Nazi in front of their neighbors. It's fucking crazy, man. I don't know. But yeah, I digress, right? I think we've all had our rants tonight, but
yeah. And the picture on the thumbnail for this live is that floating barrier that Greg Abbott had installed in the Rio Grande. It's the orange spears that they spin when you try to climb them up, and it's supposed to divert the people from crossing the Rio Grande, the thousands of people who cross over water. And this is up at Eagle Pass, Texas. The Mexican government had sued to have that barrier removed because it violates Mexican sovereignty, their water space, because we share the Rio Grande with Mexico. And yeah, I legitimately do, sympathize with the people of Mexico, because yeah, and on top of everything else, it is a violation of their sovereignty. So I don't blame them for bringing that up, but I don't really see them, like, what I want to criticize them for is that I don't see them talking enough about how the CIA is the ones undermining their sovereignty a lot more by giving money and guns to the cartels, and how those same cartels are bribing DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and these three-letter agencies to help them traffic people across the border. And that's what I mean, just like about private finance sabotaging our own government at every turn, even the ones who want to do good by their constituency. Like when Trump built the border wall, how MAGA people to support the border wall, and maybe it worked. I haven't looked into the numbers of whether or not, like, how successful it was, but the fact is that with the help of Department of Homeland Security and other three-letter agencies, the cartels started digging tunnels under the wall to traffic people across. And it doesn't matter if Trump wanted to, I believe he legitimately did want to stop the problem, and maybe the wall did work for a while, but private finance has all the political control in this country, has all of the resources at their disposal to sabotage individuals who want to tackle the problem, which is why we need actual political representation, robust, populist political representation, working class political representation, to have a dual and contending power in this country that can actually tackle these problems permanently, so that we have permanent border security, so that we no longer have these three-letter intelligence agencies, which are the real security threat to this country, so that we have a robust manufacturing economy where the wealth comes from to fund public services like hospitals, like homeless shelters, like police forces. Because the fact is, these liberal cities and these Democrats in liberal cities who are pushing defund the police, that are pushing for illegal immigration in sanctuary cities, and are now starting to regret pushing those things because they're seeing those chickens come home to roost. I don't blame them for changing their mind, and I don't revel in their misery when violence is actually inflicted on them. One of the politicians in Minnesota, I think in Minneapolis, I think it was, her car was jacked, and she posted a picture. Carbon Mike posted about this on his Twitter. Yeah, she got carjacked, and she showed a picture of herself just bleeding from the head because she was violently assaulted. I assume that's what happened during this carjacking. And she was one of the people, back in 2020, pushing for defund the police in Minneapolis after the Black Lives Matter protests, where the police precinct burned down. She was one of those people pushing for defund the police, and now her car got jacked, and people on Twitter are laughing at the irony. I don't want to I don't feel any joy that this happened to this woman. The fact is that we need security in cities and at national borders, but where does the funding come from? People like Eric Adams just don't understand that funding for public services doesn't come from finance. It doesn't come. You can't buy back stocks in a police force. It comes from a robust, real economy, producing energy infrastructure, producing construction and constructive infrastructure. It comes from manufacturing, from producing real commodities. It comes from transportation infrastructure. Things that China is set to outpace us for 5 to 10 years. They're going to have a bigger economy than us, and their manufacturing economy is already bigger than ours.
Absolutely. Hey, man, not to jump in. I actually got to I have to run, but let's do this again soon, because this was very good conversation. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah,
but
100%.
I gotta hop off.
Yeah, I feel like we found a good wrapping up point. So yeah, thank you very much, Ben, formerly non-smoker, for hopping into the stream. And thank you all who are tuning in on YouTube, who are tuning in on X, formerly Twitter. Make sure to follow us. Make sure to follow the Barracks on X. Make sure to hop into our Discord. Links in the chat below. We can continue these conversations. Let me know what you think, and in the comments. Let me know what you think on Twitter X, because we can't have these viral moments without y'all, and we really do appreciate you.